The ring hit the side of the trash bin with a sharp metal sound. People turned. Someone stopped walking. A little girl pointed toward the bin while her mother gently pulled her away. Claire didn't even look back. My hand stayed frozen in the air, still holding the tiny speech I had practiced for weeks. Only one sentence escaped my lips. Claire. She kept walking through the evening crowd. The traffic lights changed. The sound of cars swallowed everything else. Within seconds, she disappeared, and somehow, the loudest thing I heard was the silence she left behind. An hour earlier, I believed this night would become the happiest memory of my life. I had spent nearly 3 weeks planning every detail, not because Claire wanted something expensive, because I wanted her to know I had always believed in us, even when life became difficult. The little restaurant where I waited wasn't fancy. It was where we had shared our first date 6 years ago. The owner still remembered us. When I arrived early, he smiled. Big night. I laughed. I hope so. He patted my shoulder before walking away. You look more nervous than the first time. He wasn't wrong. My hands refused to stay still. Every few minutes, I touched the small ring box inside my jacket pocket just to make sure it was still there. Inside the box rested a simple white gold ring. Nothing flashy. Claire hated showing off. She always preferred things that felt honest. That was one of the reasons I fell in love with her. Beneath the ring rested something even more important, a folded handwritten letter. The paper had been replaced 3 times because I kept rewriting it. The final version carried every truth I had hidden for months. Not lies, surprises. I wanted her to discover them all at once. The letter began with only 4 words. My future starts today. Then I explained everything. A month earlier, I had received an offer from one of the biggest architecture firms in the country. The office wasn't here. It was nearly 4 hours away. When they first called me, I almost refused. Leaving the city meant leaving everything familiar. Then I remembered Claire. Every promotion she had earned came with another apology. Another late night. Another canceled weekend. Another dream pushed aside because she worried about balancing work and our relationship. She carried guilt everywhere. I wanted to take that weight away, so I accepted the job. The new salary was better. The company offered flexible hours. Most importantly, Claire's own company had a major office in the same city. She could finally chase every opportunity she wanted without choosing between love and ambition. I imagined her reading the letter, looking up, smiling, maybe crying a little, then laughing at me for keeping such a huge secret. That picture stayed inside my head every day. It helped me survive all the lonely evenings leading to tonight. The food arrived before Claire did. The soup slowly became cold. The bread lost its warmth. Outside, daylight faded into soft orange. I checked my phone. Nothing. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, the screen lit up. Running late. Big meeting. Almost done. I smiled anyway. Take your time. That was my reply. I had written those words so many times that my phone almost suggested them automatically. 30 minutes later, she hurried through the restaurant door. Her laptop bag hung from one shoulder. Her hair wasn't the neat style she usually wore. Dark circles rested beneath tired eyes. She looked exhausted. She also looked beautiful. The moment she reached the table, she dropped into the chair and let out a long breath. I'm sorry. A tired smile appeared for only a second. Everything exploded today. I figured. I know you did. She rubbed her forehead. The client changed everything at the last minute. You haven't eaten. I barely had coffee. I pushed the warm bread toward her. You should fix that. She reached for it without hesitation. Watching her eat somehow made me happier than eating myself. That had become normal. Somewhere over the years, her comfort had quietly become my own. For a little while, everything felt almost normal. She talked about deadlines, office politics, new investors, Nathan's latest presentation. His name came up again, not because she was trying to hurt me, because work had become her entire world. Nathan stayed until 2 in the morning, finishing the reports. She took another bite. I honestly don't know how he keeps going. I smiled politely. He works hard. He really does. There wasn't anything wrong with those words. Still, something inside me felt strangely left out. She spoke about him with excitement. About us. Mostly with apologies. The owner stopped by our table. Everything okay? Claire offered an embarrassed smile. Sorry I'm late again. He laughed softly. No apology needed. After he walked away, Claire looked at me. You must hate this. What? My schedule. I miss you. Her eyes softened. I know. Those two words should have comforted me. Instead, they felt unfinished, like reading only half a sentence. The dinner ended almost as quickly as it began. Claire glanced at her phone. The screen lit up 3 times in less than a minute. She sighed. I have to go back. My smile faded before I could stop it. Tonight. I'm sorry. You've been saying that a lot. She reached across the table. My fingers met hers for only a moment before another notification buzzed. She slowly pulled away. I can't ignore this. I know. I'll make it up to you. When? She froze. No answer came, because we both knew she didn't have one. We left the restaurant together. The evening air felt colder than it should have. Streetlights reflected across the wet sidewalk. People hurried past carrying shopping bags and coffee cups. Claire kept checking her phone while we walked. I watched her. Then I reached in my jacket. The ring box rested in my palm. This wasn't how I imagined the moment. But maybe perfect moments didn't exist. Maybe love only needed honesty. Claire. She looked up. What is it? I've been planning something. A tired smile crossed her face. Ethan. No. I gently shook my head. Please. Just listen. She noticed the small box. Everything changed. Not slowly. Instantly. Her shoulders became stiff. Her smile disappeared. No. It's not what you think. No. She stepped backward. We talked about this. I know. I'm not ready. You haven't even. I told you. People nearby slowed down. Not because they knew us. Because raised voices always attract attention. I can't do this right now. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her breathing became faster. You think putting a ring in front of me will magically fix everything. It isn't about fixing. You keep asking for more when I can barely survive every week. I'm not asking you to give anything up. You are. I'm trying to give you something. What? Pressure. The word hit harder than I expected. Pressure. Not love. Not hope. Pressure. I carefully opened the box. The ring caught the light. The folded letter remained hidden beneath it. She never noticed. She barely looked. You don't even know what this is. I know enough. You don't. I'm exhausted. So am I. You don't understand what my career means. I understand better than you think. No. Her voice cracked. You keep waiting for me to become someone I can't be. I've waited because I love you. I never asked you to. Those words landed somewhere deep inside me. Not cruel. Not shouted. Just honest. Maybe honesty hurts most when nobody means to be cruel. The traffic noise faded behind the pounding in my chest. People watched from nearby tables. A man walking his dog stopped. Someone whispered something I couldn't hear. None of it mattered. Only Claire. Only us. I wanted tonight to be special. It isn't. I know. You should have talked to me instead of buying a ring. I wrote you something. I don't need another promise. It's more than that. I can't. She rubbed her forehead again. I really can't. Then she reached toward the box. Hope rushed through me. Maybe she wanted to see. Maybe she would open it. Maybe. Instead, she grabbed the box, turned, and threw it. The tiny white box spun through the air before crashing into the trash bin beside the sidewalk. The sound echoed inside my head. Then everything stopped. Nobody moved. Not even me. Claire stared at the trash bin for 1 second. Regret almost appeared across her face. Almost. Then her phone rang. She answered immediately. I'm coming. Another pause. I'm on my way. She slipped the phone into her pocket. I have to leave. My lips parted. Nothing came out. She waited, maybe expecting me to argue, to beg, to stop her. I couldn't. Every word felt trapped somewhere beneath the weight pressing against my chest. She finally turned. Within moments, she disappeared into the crowd. No goodbye. No glance over her shoulder. Nothing. The street slowly returned to normal. People continued walking. Cars passed. Someone laughed across the road. Life moved forward. Mine didn't. I stood beside the trash bin while strangers quietly pretended not to notice me. An older man stopped near my shoulder. You okay? I forced a smile. I will be. He nodded gently before leaving. I wasn't sure whether I believed my own answer. I looked toward the restaurant. Through the window, I could still see our table. 2 unfinished meals. 2 glasses. The candle continued burning. The dinner had gone cold, just like the future I had imagined all month. A cold wind brushed against my face. Finally, my body remembered how to move. I stepped toward the trash bin. Coffee cups, paper bags, crumpled napkins. Then I saw the white box. My fingers trembled as I reached inside. Grease stained one corner. A coffee lid rested on top. I carefully lifted it out. The box had survived. I opened it. The ring remained exactly where I had placed it. For one brief second, relief washed over me. Then I noticed something else. The folded letter still rested beneath the ring. Untouched, unopened, unread. She had never even looked inside. She hadn't rejected my proposal. She had rejected what she believed it meant. She never discovered what it actually was. My dream job, our future, my promise to move so she could chase every dream without guilt. Every sacrifice, every hope, still hidden beneath one folded piece of paper. I stared at it for a long time. Then I slowly closed the box. No, the word escaped quietly into the empty night. She wasn't going to read it. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I slipped the box back into my jacket. The letter stayed exactly where it had always been, hidden beneath the ring she never wanted. The engagement ring stayed inside my jacket pocket all night. I didn't take it out. I didn't unfold the letter. I simply placed the box on my nightstand and sat at the edge of the bed until sunrise painted the room in pale gray. Claire never came home. Around 3 in the morning, my phone vibrated. Working late. Don't wait up. That was all. No mention of the restaurant. No mention of the argument. No mention of the ring she had thrown away. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. 100 replies filled my mind. None of them reached the screen. I locked the phone and let it rest beside the untouched ring box. The apartment felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful. Empty. The cold dinner I had packed for us before leaving the restaurant still waited inside the refrigerator. I opened the container. Pasta. Garlic bread. Her favorite dessert. Everything smelled fresh. Nothing had been touched. After staring at it for a moment, I closed the lid and placed it back. Some habits were harder to break than others. Even after everything that happened, part of me still hoped she would walk through the door hungry. The front door finally opened close to 7. Claire stepped inside with slow, tired movements. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot. Her coat slipped from one shoulder. She looked like someone who had fought an entire storm alone. When our eyes met, neither of us moved. I made coffee. A faint nod. Thanks. She carried the mug into the living room without another word. The television stayed off. The apartment remained wrapped in an uncomfortable calm. I'm sorry about last night. Her voice was quiet. Not cold. Just exhausted. I lost my temper. I stood by the kitchen counter. So did I. You surprised me. I know. Another pause settled between us. She traced the rim of the coffee mug with one finger. I can't handle big decisions right now. I wasn't trying to trap you. I know that's what you believe. The answer landed strangely. Not cruel, not comforting either. It felt like someone placing a bandage over a wound that still needed stitches. Her phone lit up. Nathan. The name flashed across the screen. She glanced at it, then at me. I have to take this. Go ahead. She stepped onto the balcony. The glass door stayed slightly open. Bits of the conversation drifted inside. Yes, I'll be there. Don't worry. A soft laugh followed. Not a long one, just enough to remind me that she still had energy somewhere. I couldn't remember the last time I heard that laugh because of me. When she returned, she picked up her bag. I have another meeting. It's Saturday. I know. You've worked every weekend this month. This project won't finish itself. I wanted to ask one simple question. What about us? The words reached my throat, then stopped, maybe because I already knew the answer. The door closed behind her. The apartment became silent again. This time I noticed something I had ignored for years. The silence wasn't new. I had simply become used to living inside it. I wandered through the rooms without thinking. The framed photos along the hallway caught my attention. Vacation, Christmas, birthday dinners. Every picture showed us smiling. None of them showed the nights leading up to those smiles. The canceled plans, the rushed phone calls, the promises that never found enough time. Pictures always captured second. They never captured the waiting. My phone buzzed. Megan, my older sister, never called this early unless something mattered. You sound awful. I've had better mornings. You want breakfast? I probably need it. I'll meet you in 20. Megan chose the small cafe near her office. She hugged me the moment I walked in. Then she leaned back and studied my face. You didn't sleep. Is it that obvious? You've got the same eyes Dad had whenever he pretended everything was fine. I laughed quietly. That's not encouraging. It isn't supposed to be. We ordered pancakes and coffee. The food arrived. Neither of us touched it. Megan folded her hands. What happened? I told her everything. The restaurant, the ring, the trash bin, the unopened letter. She listened without interrupting. Not once. When I finished, she slowly let out a breath. That must have hurt. It did. More than you're admitting. I stared into my coffee. I keep thinking maybe I picked the wrong moment. Ethan, her voice stayed gentle. How many wrong moments have there been? The question lingered between us. Too many memories rushed forward. Our second anniversary. Canceled because of a client dinner. My birthday. Postponed until the next weekend. The next weekend never happened. A vacation we booked 6 months early. Canceled 2 days before the flight. Every promise ended with the same words. Next month. After this project. When things calm down. Things never calm down. I know she's busy. Megan nodded. I believe that. I know she loves her career. I believe that too. I looked toward the window. So what's the problem? She hesitated, then leaned forward. Do you still feel like you're her future? I blinked. What? Or have you quietly become her backup plan? The words hit harder than I expected. No, they're not like that. Are you sure? Claire loves me. I didn't question that. Megan's voice remained calm. I'm asking whether she chooses you. I searched for an answer. One should have come quickly. Instead, memories answered before I could. Every lonely dinner, every canceled date, every late night apology, every promise moved a little farther away. Nothing else followed. Megan reached across the table. Her hand rested lightly over mine. You defend her every time, because I know how hard she works. I know you don't understand the pressure she's under. I probably don't. She offered a sad smile. But pressure doesn't only exist in an office. I rubbed my forehead. It isn't Nathan. I never mentioned Nathan. You were thinking it. I was thinking about you. She stirred her coffee. But if his name came to your mind before mine, the sentence didn't need an ending. I trust her. I hope you're right. I am. Good. She leaned back. Then tell me something. What? When Claire gets good news. Who hears it first? I smiled automatically. Usually Nathan. The smile faded almost immediately. Megan noticed. She didn't celebrate being right. She simply watched me connect the pieces myself. When she has a terrible day, I answered without thinking. She calls Nathan because they're still working. And later, I remained quiet. When she dreams about the future, another long pause. When she laughs, no answer. The cafe suddenly felt much louder than before. Coffee machines, conversations, plates clinking together. Everything blurred into one distant sound. I'm not trying to make you leave her. I know. I'm trying to make you stop lying to yourself. I haven't been lying. Her eyes softened. Ethan, you've been surviving. We finished breakfast with lighter conversation. Movies, family, work. Still, one question refused to leave my head. Future, or backup plan. Back in my office, I struggled to focus. Blueprints covered my desk. Measurements blurred together. Nathan's name kept appearing in my memory. Not because I believed Claire loved him, because she shared everything important with him. Meetings, victories, failures, late nights. Meanwhile, I waited at home with reheated dinners. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. Claire, running into another meeting. Dinner tonight? Hope rose inside me. Of course. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. A minute later, another message arrived. Actually, client dinner. Rain check. I stare at the screen. Rain check. Another promise pushed forward. Another dinner moved somewhere into the future. I typed 3 words. No problem. Even while sending them, I knew they weren't true. Work ended late. Instead of going home immediately, I walked through the park. Couples filled the walking paths. Children laughed near the fountain. A young man knelt beside a bench. His girlfriend covered her face with both hands before throwing herself into his arms. People clapped. She wore the ring immediately. He looked happier than anyone I had seen all day. Without thinking, my hand slipped into my jacket pocket. The small ring box waited there, still hidden, still carrying a letter nobody had read. By the time I reached home, darkness had settled outside. The apartment lights were off. Claire wasn't back yet. I changed clothes and started cleaning. Not because the apartment was messy, because keeping my hands busy felt easier than sitting alone with my thoughts. Halfway through folding laundry, I opened our bedroom closet. Then I stopped. Something was missing. At first I couldn't tell what. The shelves looked neat. Too neat. My eyes moved slowly across the space. Half the hangers were empty. Several dresses were gone. Winter coats, shoes, travel bags. Even a small jewelry box she kept on the top shelf had disappeared. I frowned. Maybe she moved things. Maybe. I checked the guest room. Nothing. Storage closet. Nothing. Bathroom cabinets. Half empty. A strange feeling settled over me. Not panic. Confusion. When Claire finally came home, I stood near the bedroom door. Did you reorganize? She slipped off her shoes. What? The closet. A tiny pause. Oh, you moved things. I rented a small storage unit. My heartbeat slowed. What? I needed space. Space. For work clothes. We had enough room. Not really. I glanced toward the half-empty closet again. You moved more than clothes. She avoided my eyes while hanging up her coat. I've been meaning to tell you. You forgot. I've just been busy. The answer should have made sense. Instead, it left another crack inside something I had believed was solid. When were you going to tell me? She sighed. I don't know. It would have been nice to know my own apartment was changing. Our apartment. That's exactly my point. She stepped closer. I wasn't hiding anything. It felt like it. I rented storage because I needed it. You didn't think I'd notice half your life disappearing? I didn't think it mattered. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Her eyes widened. So that's what this is? No, I know what you meant. Neither of us raised our voices. We didn't need to. The distance between us carried enough weight. She picked up her laptop. I still have work. Of course. She hesitated near the office door. I really am sorry about the ring. I nodded once. So am I. Hours later, she fell asleep on the couch beside her open computer. The screen still displayed charts and emails. I quietly covered her with a blanket. Old habits. Again. Then I walked into the bedroom. The empty side of the closet waited in the darkness. I reached toward the shelf above. Our wedding planning notebook rested exactly where we had left it over a year ago. Dust covered the front. I brushed it away. Inside were handwritten lists, venues, guest names, flower colors, dream honeymoon ideas. Every page ended halfway through. Life had interrupted all of them. I closed the notebook, carefully, almost gently, then placed it back. It looked less like a plan now, more like something abandoned. My phone vibrated. A new email. Congratulations. My heart skipped. It was from the architecture firm. Your employment offer remains available. Please confirm your acceptance by the end of this week. I read the message twice, then a third time. Weeks ago, I already knew my answer. I planned to tell Claire after proposing, after giving her the letter, after building our future together. Now everything had changed. The bedroom door remained open behind me. The empty closet stood quietly in the darkness. The wedding notebook gathered dust on its shelf. Claire slept in another room beside a glowing laptop. My thumb hovered over the confirmation button. This time, I found myself wondering if I should accept the job without asking her at all. The email stayed open on my laptop long after midnight. One button, one decision, one future waiting for me. My hand rested on the mouse. This time, I didn't picture Claire reading the letter hidden beneath the engagement ring. I picture myself staying exactly where I was. Another year, another promise, another cold dinner waiting inside the refrigerator. The thought hurt more than leaving. I took a slow breath, then clicked accept offer. A loading circle appeared. A second later, another message filled the screen. Congratulations, Ethan Carter. We look forward to welcoming you to the team. I didn't smile. I simply leaned back in the chair. The room looked exactly the same. My life didn't. Claire was still asleep on the couch. Her laptop rested against one arm. Charts covered the screen. A spreadsheet remained open beside an unread message from me asking if she wanted breakfast. The message still showed one gray check mark. She hadn't even opened it. I quietly closed the laptop. She shifted under the blanket, but didn't wake. Part of me wanted to tell her everything. Another part remembered the ring landing inside the trash bin. I picked up my car keys instead. The new company's office called before noon. A cheerful voice welcomed me. We received your confirmation. I'm looking forward to joining. We'll email the relocation details today. Thank you. There will be a lot to prepare. I understand. After the call ended, I stared through the office window. Cars passed below. People hurried across the street. Everyone seemed to know where they were going. For the first time in weeks, I finally did too. That evening, I met Oliver after work. He had been my closest friend since college. The kind of friend who noticed things before I admitted them myself. The moment he saw me, he frowned. You finally look tired. I've looked tired for months. Today is different. We ordered burgers. Neither of us touched them right away. He folded his arms. So, you accepted it. I nodded. His face softened. I'm proud of you. It doesn't feel like something to celebrate. It rarely does when you're choosing yourself for the first time. I let out a quiet laugh. I thought you'd tell me to fight harder. Oliver leaned back. For what? My relationship. Ethan. His voice stayed calm. Relationships aren't boxing matches. I love her. I know. I don't want to leave because I'm angry. Good. He smiled slightly. Leave because you've been forgotten. The word stayed with me. I keep wondering if I'm giving up too soon. He shook his head. You've been waiting for years. I could try talking one more time. You've tried. I could explain the job. You planned to. I could show her the letter. Oliver reached for his drink, then met my eyes. Let me ask you something. I nodded. If she had opened that ring box. He paused. Would she have found the letter because she wanted to hear your heart? Another pause. Or because it happened to be under the ring? I looked down at the table. I don't know. I think you do. The food finally arrived. We ate quietly. Halfway through the meal, Oliver spoke again. You've spent years proving your love. I never minded. I know. He pointed gently toward me. But somewhere along the way, you forgot to prove your value to yourself. Driving home, I replayed every word. Not because they were dramatic, because they were simple. Simple truths often arrive later than they should. The apartment lights were on. Claire stood in the kitchen, typing on her phone while stirring soup with her free hand. She smiled when I walked in. You're home. I am. I actually cooked. I noticed. She laughed softly. Don't sound so surprised. The smell reminded me of evenings from years ago. Back when working at 5. Back when we talked during dinner instead of checking calendars. She placed 2 bowls on the table. I'm sorry I've been distracted. I know. I promise this project won't last forever. I nodded. I hope not. Her phone buzzed. Nathan. She glanced at the screen. Her smile faded. I need 2 minutes. She stepped into the hallway. The soup slowly cooled between us. I stared at the empty chair across the table. 2 minutes became 15. When she returned, the soup had already lost its warmth. She sat down with a tired sigh. I'm sorry. I picked up my spoon. It's okay. She studied me while we ate. You're quiet. Just thinking. About work? A little. You usually tell me everything. I smiled. I used to. She frowned slightly. What does that mean? Nothing. She waited. I kept eating. The conversation ended there. Not because we solved anything. Because she let it go. The next week passed like rain against a window. Steady. Gray. Hard to notice until everything outside looked different. The relocation package arrived. I signed forms. Booked moving dates. Reserved a small apartment near the new office. Everything happened quietly. No celebrations. No announcements. Only paperwork. Oliver helped me sort through boxes on Saturday. Books. Old clothes. Photo albums. Kitchen supplies. He lifted one heavy carton. Keep. Donate. Another box. Keep. Keep. Then he held up a framed photo of Claire and me from our first vacation. The picture captured us laughing on a beach. I'll pack it. I hesitated, then gently took the frame. No. What? It belongs here. He understood immediately. Without another word, he placed it back on the shelf. By evening, my bedroom looked different. Half my books were packed. Several drawers stood empty. One suitcase rested beneath the bed. Hidden. Waiting. I slid it farther inside so it couldn't be seen. Not because I felt guilty, because I wasn't ready for questions I no longer wanted to answer. Claire came home after midnight. She noticed the stacked boxes. Spring cleaning. Something like that. She rubbed her tired eyes. I barely know what day it is anymore. I know. She stepped closer. You're really okay? I smiled again. The same small smile. Calm. Gentle. No anger. No accusation. She seemed almost relieved. I'm glad. She kissed my cheek before heading toward the shower. The moment lasted less than 2 seconds. Long enough to remember how different affection had become. Days continued slipping away. Every morning, she left before sunrise. Every night, she returned after dark. Nathan's name remained part of nearly every phone call, nearly every message, nearly every conversation. I stopped reacting, not because it no longer mattered, because exhausting myself over things I couldn't control had changed nothing. One afternoon, my phone rang. Claire, I might miss dinner. I figured. You already made plans? I'll eat something. I hate doing this. I know. I'll make it up to you. You don't have to. A quiet pause settled between us. That doesn't sound like you. Maybe I'm changing. Another pause. I'll call later. You don't have to. The line stayed silent for a second. Then the call ended. That evening, I opened the small safe inside my desk. The engagement ring rested where I had hidden it. Beside it lay the folded letter she never read. I carefully unfolded it. Every sentence still carried hope. Every promise still believed in forever. I smiled sadly, then reached for a blank sheet of paper. If she would never read the first letter, maybe I needed to write the last one. My pen moved slowly. Every word mattered. Claire, you once asked why I always believed in us. The answer was simple. Loving you never felt difficult. Waiting for you did. I stopped for a moment. The room remained quiet except for the sound of the clock. Then I continued. The night I gave you the ring, I wasn't asking you to give up your dreams. I had already given up mine. I accepted a job in another city because your company has a larger office there. I wanted to surprise you with a future where you never had to choose between love and ambition. My hand tightened around the pen. You never opened the letter beneath the ring. Maybe that's the saddest part. You rejected a future you never even saw. Another pause. The words became harder. I'm not leaving because you threw away a ring. I'm leaving because somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing me. A drop of water landed on the paper. I realized it came from my own eyes. I wiped it away before the ink could spread. Then finished the final lines. I hope one day you find everything you've worked so hard to build. I also hope you remember that success feels very lonely when there's nobody waiting to celebrate it with you. I'll always be grateful for the years we shared, but I finally need to become someone who matters to himself too. I folded the letter carefully, placed it inside a plain envelope, locked it inside the safe, then turned the key. Not because I wanted to punish Claire, because some words deserve peace if they arrive too late. The following week became strangely calm. I stopped checking whether she read my messages, stopped waiting by the window, stopped asking when she'd be home. Instead, I packed another box every evening. One bookshelf disappeared, then another. My side of the closet slowly emptied. The apartment changed one quiet piece at a time. Claire barely noticed. Friday night, she arrived home carrying a bottle of wine. A rare sight. She smiled as she placed it on the table. I escaped early. Congratulations. I thought we could watch a movie. Sounds nice. She blinked. That's it. What? You usually look more excited. I am. She tilted her head. Something feels different. I shrugged gently. Maybe we're both tired. She watched me for another moment, almost searching for an argument. Finding none, she relaxed. I'll change. As she walked toward the bedroom, my eyes followed her. Not because I expected anything, because I wondered how much longer this place would still feel like home. Later that night, we sat together on the couch. The movie played. Neither of us paid much attention. Her phone buzzed again. Nathan. She sighed. I have to answer. Go ahead. You don't mind? No. She studied my face. You really don't. I smiled. No. That seemed to bother her more than if I had complained. After the call ended, she muted the television. Ethan. Yeah. Were you angry after the restaurant? I was hurt. And now, I'm thinking about us. About everything. She waited. The old version of me would have filled the silence. Explained every feeling. Asked for reassurance. Begged for another chance. Instead, I simply sat there. Eventually, she picked up the remote. We'll talk later. Okay. She turned the movie back on. Later never came. Moving day crept closer. The last paperwork arrived. My start date was confirmed. Everything was ready. Only one thing remained unfinished. Leaving. 3 days before my departure, I carried another box to my car before work. Then another after sunset. Piece by piece, my life quietly disappeared from the apartment. Nobody noticed, not even the woman I had planned to marry. The evening before my final week began, I removed the last shirts from my side of the closet. The wooden hangers swung gently after each one disappeared. The space looked strangely large, almost unfamiliar. I slid the packed suitcase beneath the bed one final time, then closed the closet door. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Claire came home early. No midnight. No late meeting. No rush phone call. She stepped into the bedroom with a tired smile. I actually got out before 6. She reached for the closet, opened the door, then froze. Her smile slowly disappeared. Half the closet stood completely empty. The closet stayed open. Claire stood in front of it without moving. Her fingers brushed across the empty hangers as if they might explain what had happened. She turned toward me slowly. Where are your clothes? I folded another shirt and placed it into a box. I packed them. Why? I'm moving. The room became very still. The answer was simple. Its meaning wasn't. She blinked twice. What do you mean, moving? I accepted a job. Her forehead tightened. What job? The one I interviewed for a month ago. I didn't know you were interviewing. I know. A long breath escaped her. Where? Riverton. Her lips parted. That's 4 hours away. I know. When were you going to tell me? I closed the box before answering. I tried. Her eyes searched my face. Neither of us mentioned the restaurant. Neither of us mentioned the ring. We didn't have to. It was standing between us already. You can't make a decision like this without me. A sad smile appeared before I could stop it. You made plenty without me. I've just been busy. I know. Ethan, I really do know. The calm of my voice surprised even me. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was simply too tired to fight anymore. She stepped closer. So that's it? No. No. I wanted us to build a future together. You still can. I gently shook my head. I don't think we're building the same future anymore. She reached toward my arm. My body didn't move away. It didn't move closer either. I need time. You've had years. Her hand slowly fell back to her side. The conversation ended without either of us walking away. She stood near the closet. I carried another box into the hallway. Neither of us raised our voices. Sometimes quiet words leave deeper marks. The next morning, I left before sunrise. The moving company would collect my furniture in 2 days. Until then, I stayed with Oliver. It felt easier that way, less confusing. I placed my apartment key on the kitchen counter, then picked it up again. Not yet. There were still a few things to finish. Claire was already gone when I returned that evening. The apartment lights were off. Her coffee mug from breakfast rested in the sink. Normally, I would wash it without thinking. Instead, I left it exactly where it was, not out of anger, because it no longer belonged to my routine. I packed books until midnight. Old notebooks, family photos, architecture magazines. Every shelf became lighter. Every empty space reminded me that leaving had become real. My phone buzzed. Oliver, need help tomorrow? Yeah. I'll bring my truck. Thanks. You holding up? I looked around the quiet apartment. I'm learning. The next day passed in careful silence. Oliver loaded boxes. I signed paperwork. The landlord inspected the apartment. Everything happened faster than I expected. By sunset, only a few pieces of furniture remained. The bedroom echoed when I walked across it. Claire didn't come home until after midnight. I heard her unlock the door while sealing another box. She stopped in the hallway. What happened? The movers came. She looked around. The living room felt almost unfamiliar. The bookshelf was gone. The dining table had disappeared. Only the couch remained. You moved everything. I told you I was leaving. I didn't think. Her sentence faded. I know. She wandered through the apartment, as if entering someone else's home. The walls looked bare where our pictures had once hung. Small squares of brighter paint marked the places they had covered for years. She reached toward one of those empty spaces. Her hand stopped halfway. You took the photos. The ones with my family. What about ours? They're still in a box. She nodded slowly. Nothing else came. That night, she slept in the bedroom. I stayed on the couch. The distance between those two rooms felt larger than 4 hours. Morning arrived quietly. No alarm from my phone. No coffee brewing in the kitchen. Claire walked into the living room wearing one of my old sweatshirts. She looked toward the counter. The coffee maker. I packed it. You always make coffee. I used to. She opened a cabinet. Empty. Another cabinet. Empty again. The apartment answered every question before I could. She left for work without breakfast. I watched the door close. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. A message from her. Did you eat? I stared at the words. For years I had sent that message almost every day. Now it came from her. I locked the screen without replying. Not to punish her. I simply didn't know what to say. Oliver arrived with the last load around noon. You ready? I glanced around the apartment. I think so. He noticed my hesitation. You don't have to hate this place. I don't. You just can't stay inside it. I nodded. He understood. By evening, only my suitcase remained. The engagement ring box rested inside my backpack. So did the unread farewell letter locked in its envelope. I carried both with me. Some memories were too heavy to leave behind. Before leaving, I walked through every room one last time. The kitchen where we danced while cooking pasta. The balcony where we watched storms roll across the city. The bedroom where we planned a wedding that never happened. The apartment wasn't haunted by bad memories. It was filled with good ones that no longer belonged to the present. I left my key on the counter. This time I didn't pick it up again. 3 days later, I started my final week at the architecture firm. People gathered around my desk. Cake, coffee, a card signed by everyone. One coworker smiled. We'll miss you. I'll miss all of you too. Another laughed. Riverton is lucky. I thanked them. The celebration felt warm. Almost strange. People I worked with every day had noticed I was leaving. The woman I planned to marry almost hadn't. Near lunchtime, my manager called me into his office. He shook my hand. You've earned this opportunity. Thank you. I spoke with Claire yesterday. I blinked. You did. She called asking if your resignation was real. My heart skipped. What did you tell her? The truth. He paused. I assumed she already knew. So did I. The train ticket rested inside my wallet. Departure, Saturday morning. Everything was ready. There was nothing left to delay. Friday evening, I returned to the apartment one final time. Claire wasn't home. I picked up the last small box waiting near the bedroom door. While checking the drawers, I noticed something. One drawer had stuck halfway open. Inside rested a small wooden organizer. Pens, old receipts, spare keys. The engagement ring box had once been hidden there. Now the drawer stood empty. I frowned, then remembered. The ring was already in my backpack. I closed the drawer and left. I never realized I had forgotten something else. A tiny key, the key to the small desk safe. It rested behind the organizer where neither of us had noticed it before. Claire came home earlier than usual that night. The apartment greeted her with complete silence. No television, no music, no light waiting in the living room. She called my name. Nothing answered. She checked the bedroom. Empty. The closet. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. The apartment no longer looked shared. It looked borrowed. Later, she noticed the envelope from my landlord lying on the kitchen counter. Inside was a copy of the lease transfer. My signature covered the final page. Below it rested another document. My resignation letter from the architecture firm. Her breathing became uneven. She read the company name twice. Then the city. Riverton. She whispered my name into the empty room. No voice answered. My phone vibrated while I sat at Oliver's apartment. Claire. I watched it ring. Then stop. A message appeared. Why didn't you tell me? Another. Please answer. A third. Where are you? The screen slowly filled. I didn't open any of them. For months, she had unknowingly shown me what unread messages felt like. Now, she was finally meeting that silence herself. Back inside the apartment, she searched every room. Not wildly, carefully, almost desperately. She opened cabinets, looked inside empty boxes, checked shelves, then reached for my old desk. The top drawer refused to close completely. She pulled it open. The small key rolled to her hand. Confused, she picked it up. Her eyes drifted toward the desk safe beneath the bookshelf. The key fit perfectly. A soft click echoed through the room. Inside rested only two things: a plain white envelope and a small velvet ring box. She froze. Slowly, almost afraid of what waited inside, she picked up the box. Her fingers trembled. The lid opened. The ring still rested exactly where I had placed it. Beneath it, a folded letter, still sealed, still unread. She carefully lifted the ring, then unfolded the paper. I was already asleep at Oliver's apartment when she finally read the words I had written weeks earlier. She learned about the dream job, the better salary, the office her company already had in Riverdale, the future I planned, so she would never have to choose between love and ambition. She reached the line where I confessed I had accepted the position before proposing. She reached the part where I wrote that the ring wasn't asking her to give up her dreams. It was my promise to protect them. The paper shook in her hands. By the time she reached the final sentence, tears had blurred the ink. She wasn't crying because of a lost ring. She was crying because she finally understood what had been hidden beneath it all along. Before sunrise, my phone lit up again. Call after call. Message after message. I didn't answer. My train left in less than 2 hours. The station buzzed with travelers carrying bags and coffee cups. Oliver helped me load my suitcase. You sure? I looked toward the tracks. I have to be. The announcement echoed overhead. Boarding had begun. Just as I stepped onto the train, I heard someone shouting my name. I turned. Claire ran through the station. Her hair was loose. Her coat hung open. One hand clutched the engagement ring. The other held my letter tightly against her chest. She kept running. The train doors closed between us. Her palm struck the glass. Mine stayed at my side. The train began to move. She ran beside it until the platform disappeared behind us. The ring was finally back in her hands. But I was already gone. The train carried me farther from my old life with every passing mile. I watched the city disappear through the window until familiar buildings became nothing more than distant shapes. My phone stayed face down on the small table beside me. It vibrated again, then again. I already knew whose name would be waiting on the screen. I never turned it over. Some conversations belonged to a different version of ourselves. The man leaving that city wasn't the same one who had stood beside a trash bin holding an engagement ring. Riverdale greeted me with cool air and steady rain. Oliver helped carry my suitcase into the small apartment the company had arranged for my first month. The place was simple. One bedroom, one couch, one kitchen barely large enough for 2 people. It wasn't impressive. It was mine. Oliver looked around with a grin. Not bad. I've lived in smaller places. He laughed. I wasn't talking about the apartment. I raised an eyebrow. You walked away from the hardest decision of your life. He rested a hand on my shoulder. Now give yourself a chance to walk towards something better. After he left, the apartment became very quiet. The silence felt different. Back home, silence reminded me of someone missing. Here, it sounded like an empty page waiting for a new story. I unpacked slowly. The last thing I placed inside a drawer was the velvet ring box. I didn't open it. I simply closed the drawer and walked away. The first week of my new job passed faster than I expected. Everyone welcomed me warmly. My manager introduced me to the design team. Fresh projects covered the conference room walls. Ideas flowed without anyone checking a clock every 5 minutes. It reminded me why I had fallen in love with architecture in the first place. Not because of buildings, because creating something lasting always felt meaningful. During lunch, one of my coworkers leaned back in his chair. So what brought you here? I smiled politely. A new beginning. He nodded once. No better reason than that. Nobody pushed for details. Nobody wanted the painful version of the answer. I appreciated that. My phone buzzed while I reviewed blueprints. One unread message. Then another. Then 3 more. Claire. I finally opened the conversation. Please let me explain. I read the letter. I didn't know. A few minutes later, another message appeared. Can we talk? I stared at the screen. Months ago, I would have answered before she finished typing. Now I quietly locked my phone and returned to my drawings. The work in front of me deserved my attention more than old regrets. The days slowly settled into a comfortable rhythm. Morning coffee, work, evening walks, simple dinners. There were still lonely moments. Healing never happened all at once. Some nights I reached for my phone before remembering nobody was waiting for my goodnight message anymore. Other nights I smiled without realizing it. The balance slowly changed. Not because the past disappeared, because it stopped controlling every hour of my day. One Saturday morning, Oliver called. What are you doing tomorrow? Nothing planned. Good. I know that tone. He laughed. You're volunteering. I don't remember agreeing. You just did. The community center stood beside a quiet park. Families filled the playground, while volunteers carried boxes of donated books and food into the building. Oliver handed me a cardboard box. Start over there. That's the training. Pretty much. I laughed for the first time in days. Real laughter, not the polite version people use to hide sadness. The morning passed quickly. Children colored pictures at long tables. Older volunteers sorted clothing. Someone played soft music near the entrance. Everything moved with calm purpose. Nobody rushed. Nobody argued. Nobody cared what title anyone held at work. Near lunchtime, a woman balanced 3 heavy boxes while trying to open the storage room door with one elbow. Without thinking, I hurried over. I've got those. She smiled with obvious relief. You just saved my back. The boxes weren't very heavy. Her gratitude felt genuine anyway. I'm Ethan. Grace. She brushed a loose strand of hair behind one ear. You're new. Is it that obvious? You still look around before picking up another box. I laughed. Fair enough. Grace showed me where everything belonged. Books on one shelf, food supplies on another, school bags in neat rows along the back wall. She moved with quiet confidence, never rushing, never trying to impress anyone. When we finished, she wiped dust from her hands. So, what brings an architect to a volunteer center? The question made me smile. My friend refused to take no for an answer. She glanced toward Oliver. That sounds like him. A brief silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just peaceful. You look like someone carrying a lot. Her voice remained gentle. I looked at the floor for a moment. I used to. I'm learning how to put some of it down. She nodded. No advice. No long speech. Only quiet understanding. Sometimes that helps more than perfect words. The following weekends became part of my routine. Work during the week. Community center on Saturdays. Coffee with Oliver afterward. Life slowly found a healthy rhythm. One afternoon, Grace handed me a paintbrush while volunteers repaired an old classroom. You missed a spot. I pretended to inspect the wall seriously. I was testing your attention. She folded her arms with a playful smile. Nice try. The room filled with light laughter. For a few minutes, I forgot what heartbreak sounded like. Late one evening, my phone rang again. Claire. This time I answered. Not because I wanted to go backward, because avoiding every conversation forever wasn't healing either. Neither of us spoke immediately. Then her quiet voice reached me. I wasn't sure you'd pick up. I wasn't either. I've been trying. I know. Another pause. I read your letter every day. I close my eyes briefly. I'm sorry. The apology sounded different now. Smaller. Heavier. Not something prepared. I believe you. You do. Yes. She took a shaky breath. Can we meet? I'm not ready. I understand. I hope you really do. I think I'm starting to. The call ended without anger. Without hope. Only honesty. The next month brought another surprise. Nathan accepted a position overseas. I learned about it through Megan during one of our weekly calls. He left yesterday. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Really? Huge promotion. Good for him. She hesitated. Claire took it hard. I thought they were working together on everything. They were. What happened? Nathan chose his career. Her voice softened, the same way Claire always did. I remained quiet. Megan continued. She told me something. What? She finally understands he was never the person she was building a life with. I stared out the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. It took losing you to see that. Work became busier. My confidence returned one successful project at a time. Colleagues trusted my ideas. Clients complimented my designs. The praise felt nice. Still, the biggest victory happened inside me. I stopped wondering whether I was enough. No amount of attention from another person could answer that question. Only I could. Grace noticed a change before I did. While organizing donated school supplies, she smiled. You're different, hopefully in a good way. You smile with your eyes now. I laughed quietly. That's specific. It wasn't always like that. I placed another backpack onto the shelf. I've been working on it. It shows. We walked through the nearby park after volunteering ended. Families enjoyed the afternoon sun. Children chased pigeons across the grass. Grace carried 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to me. Can I ask something? Go ahead. Were you running away when you moved here? The question surprised me. I thought I was. And now, I watched the breeze move through the trees. I think I was running towards someone. Ooh, myself. She smiled without looking at me. I like that answer. Claire's messages became less frequent. Not because she stopped caring, because she finally understood that healing couldn't be rushed. Sometimes days passed without hearing from her. Sometimes a simple message appeared. I hope work went well today. Or, I saw a building that reminded me of your designs. I rarely replied. When I did, my answer stayed kind. Short. Honest. Nothing more. One evening, she sent a picture. Our old wedding notebook rested on the table. Dust had been cleaned from the cover. Below the picture, she wrote only one sentence. I should have opened this sooner, too. I stared at the screen for a long time, then placed the phone face down. Some regrets deserved to be carried by the person who created them. They didn't need my help anymore. Months passed. Autumn painted the city in gold and red. The Volunteer Center prepared its annual family festival. Everyone worked together, decorating the hall. Grace climbed a ladder to hang paper lanterns. Can you hand me the tape? I reached up. Here. She smiled. Thanks. Oliver walked by carrying folded tables. He grinned at both of us. I leave for 5 minutes, and suddenly teamwork becomes suspicious. Grace rolled her eyes. Keep walking. He laughed all the way down the hallway. The afternoon became busy. Music echoed through the building. Children practiced songs for the evening program. Parents arrived carrying homemade food. The entire place felt alive. I stood near the entrance, arranging chairs when the front door opened. A familiar voice quietly spoke my name. Ethan. My hands stopped moving. Slowly, I turned toward the doorway. Claire stood just inside the volunteer center, holding the same engagement ring box carefully in both hands. My name sounded unfamiliar coming from her voice. Not because I had forgotten it, because months had passed since I heard her speak it face to face. The volunteer center buzzed with laughter behind me. Children ran through the hallway, carrying paper decorations. Music drifted from another room. Everything around us felt warm. The distance between us felt cold. Claire stood near the entrance, holding the velvet ring box with both hands. She looked thinner. The confidence that once filled every step had been replaced by quiet hesitation. Dark circles rested beneath tired eyes. She didn't look broken. She looked like someone who had finally stopped pretending she wasn't. Grace walked over with a stack of paper cups. Her eyes moved from me to Claire. You know each other? I nodded. We do. Grace offered a gentle smile. I'll cover things here. Thank you. She didn't ask questions. She simply walked away. That small act of trust meant more than she probably realized. Claire glanced around the busy room. I didn't want to interrupt. You already have. A faint smile crossed her face. I guess I deserve that. Neither of us laughed. She tightened her grip on the ring box. Can we talk? I looked through the window beside the entrance. The park outside was quiet. A few empty benches waited beneath tall trees. I have half an hour. Relief flickered across her face. That's enough. I don't know if it is. We walked side by side without touching. Months ago, I would have matched my pace to hers without thinking. Now each step belonged only to me. We reached a bench beneath an old maple tree. Orange leaves drifted through the afternoon air. Claire remained standing for a moment before sitting carefully beside me. A respectful distance separated us. It felt right. She placed the ring box between us. I've carried this everywhere. My eyes rested on the small box. You didn't have to. I know. Her fingers slowly traced the edge of the lid. I just couldn't leave it behind. The wind carried a few leaves across the path. Neither of us hurried to speak again. I've practiced this conversation 100 times. She gave a tired laugh. None of those versions survived the moment I saw you. You don't need a perfect speech. I know. She took a slow breath. I only need the truth. I nodded once. So do I. Her eyes remained on the ground. I thought love meant trusting that you'd always be there. She paused. What I really did. Another pause. I treated your love like something that couldn't disappear. I stayed quiet. She deserved the space to finish. I never worried about losing you. A sad smile appeared. Not because I didn't love you. She looked at me for the first time. Because I believed you would never leave. The words settled between us. Not as an excuse. As a confession. I kept telling myself everything was temporary. She folded her hands tightly together. One more project. One more deadline. One more late night. She shook her head. I honestly believed we'd have time later. What changed? You disappeared. A child laughed somewhere behind us. The sound faded quickly. Claire continued. The apartment. Her voice became quieter. I never realized how much of you lived inside that place. She smiled through tired eyes. No coffee. No light waiting for me. No messages asking if I'd eaten. She swallowed slowly. I thought those things were small. They weren't. I know. I came home one night and almost called your name. Her hands trembled slightly. Then I remembered. You weren't there. No. She looked toward the trees. And the silence answered me instead. I listened without interrupting. Months ago, I would have rushed to comfort her. Now, I understood that not every painful feeling needed rescuing. Some truths had to be lived before they could be understood. She opened a ring box carefully. The white gold ring rested inside. Sunlight reflected across its smooth surface. I've replayed that night so many times. So have I. If I had opened the box, you would have found the letter. She closed her eyes briefly. I know. I hated myself after reading it. The sentence came out almost as a whisper. You accepted the job for me. I nodded. I almost turned it down. Her head lifted sharply. What? I told them no. The memory returned clearly. Then I thought about your career. You always felt guilty. You worried I was sacrificing too much. So I accepted. I smiled sadly. I thought moving together would solve everything. Tears gathered in her eyes. You planned your future around mine. I planned ours. Another tear slipped down her cheek, and I threw it away. She carefully removed the folded letter from inside the box. The paper already showed soft creases from being opened countless times. I've memorized every word. Her thumb rested over one sentence. The part where you wrote. She stopped. Emotion caught her voice. That you wanted to protect my dreams. She looked down again. No one has ever loved me like that. I took a slow breath. I wasn't perfect either. Her eyes widened. What? I stayed quiet too long. You were patient. I avoided hard conversations. You tried. I convinced myself that understanding your pressure meant ignoring my own pain. A quiet smile touched my face. That wasn't healthy. She shook her head. You shouldn't be apologizing. I'm not. I met her eyes calmly. I'm just being honest. For a while we simply watched people walking through the park. A father pushed his daughter on a swing. An older couple shared coffee near the fountain. Life continued without caring how complicated ours had become. Claire broke the silence. Can I tell you something I've never admitted to anyone? You can. She clasped her hands together. It wasn't Nathan. I know. I never loved him. I know. She looked surprised. You do. I always did. She frowned slightly. Then why didn't you fight harder? I smiled sadly. Because Nathan wasn't the problem. What was? You stopped choosing us. The answer came gently, not as an accusation. Simply the truth. She leaned back against the bench. I admired him. I noticed. He never seemed tired. He was ambitious. I wanted to prove I could keep up. Her voice carried quiet regret. I kept chasing the next promotion, the next client, the next success. She laughed bitterly. And somehow I convinced myself you would understand forever. You know what finally broke me? She looked at me carefully. The ring. I shook my head. The empty closet. Confusion crossed her face. You emptied yours first. I know. I kept telling myself it was only storage. I looked toward the sky. Then I opened my side. I realized I was the only one still unpacking a future. She covered her face for a moment. I'm sorry. The apology came naturally, without drama, without pleading, only truth. I reached into my pocket. My phone rested there. I unlocked it, opened my contacts, then placed it gently between us. She stared at the screen. Her name wasn't there anymore, only an empty search result. Her breathing caught. You. I deleted it. When? The day I moved. She touched the phone lightly, but didn't pick it up. You really let me go. I had to. The silence that followed felt heavier than any speech. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply stared at the empty contact list. Finally, she whispered, I never thought you'd reach that point. I didn't either. She slowly handed the ring toward me. I think this belongs to you. The velvet box rested in her open palm. I looked at it for several seconds, then gently pushed her hand back. No. Confusion filled her face. Why? It belongs to our past. I don't want to keep it. You should. Her eyebrows drew together. As punishment, I shook my head immediately. As a reminder, she lowered the box on her lap. I've spent months trying to understand where everything went wrong. You figured out? I think so. I waited. I thought love could survive neglect. A weak smile appeared. It can't. The afternoon sun slipped lower. Long shadows stretched across the park. My watch reminded me that the festival would begin soon. I should get back. She nodded quickly. I know. Neither of us stood. Not yet. She glanced toward the volunteer center. Is that woman? Grace. A small nod. She's kind. She is. Are you together? I smiled. No. The answer seemed to calm her. Not because it changed anything. Because uncertainty had become hope again. She turned toward me one last time. I've changed. I believe you. I really have. I know. She searched my face. You do. I can see it. Another pause. But change doesn't erase consequences. Her shoulders lowered. I know. She picked up the folded letter, carefully placed it back inside the ring box, then closed the lid. Her fingers remained on top of it. I finally understand what I destroyed. The words came out quietly. It wasn't just a proposal. No. It was a future. I nodded once. It was. The sounds of children singing drifted from a volunteer center. The festival had started. I stood slowly. I have to go. Claire remained seated. I won't stop you. A sad smile crossed my face. Thank you. She rose a moment later. The breeze moved gently between us. So, her voice almost disappeared. I only have one question left. I waited. Her eyes searched mine with fragile hope. Is there still any future for us? Is there still any future for us? Claire's question stayed in the air long after the words left her lips. Children laughed inside the volunteer center. Music drifted through the open doors. Life continued around us. Mine stopped for one quiet moment. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I wanted to make her wait. Because she deserved an honest answer, and honest answers sometimes arrive slowly. I don't know. A small nod. I appreciate the truth. It isn't the answer you wanted. No. She managed a weak smile. But it's better than a promise you don't believe. We walked back toward the volunteer center together. Neither of us reached for the other. The space between us no longer felt awkward. It felt respectful. At the entrance, she stopped. I won't come here again. You don't have to disappear. I think I do. Her eyes moved toward the families inside. You've built something peaceful. I don't want my past to become another burden. She turned to leave, then looked back one last time. I'm glad you found your way. I watched her disappear down the sidewalk. This time, I didn't chase her. That night's sleep refused to come. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every memory seemed determined to visit. Our first date. The tiny apartment where we started. The nights we laughed until sunrise. The cold dinners. The empty closet. The ring in the trash. The train pulling away. None of those moments erased the others. Love and pain had lived beside each other for a long time. Now, they both waited for my decision. The next morning, I arrived at the volunteer center earlier than usual. Grace noticed immediately. "You've been awake all night. Is it that obvious? You forgot your coffee." I looked down. She was right. My hands were empty. She handed me a paper cup. "I brought an extra." "Thank you." We carried boxes into the storage room without speaking. The quiet felt comfortable. Eventually, she leaned against a shelf. "Can I ask something?" "You usually do. Are you trying to decide whether forgiving someone means going back?" I stared at her in surprise. She smiled softly. "I guessed. I don't hate Claire. I know. I don't even want revenge. I know that too." I wrapped both hands around the warm coffee cup. "I still care about her." Grace nodded. "That doesn't surprise me. What if walking away makes me selfish?" She shook her head gently. "Healing doesn't erase love." Her voice remained calm. "It teaches you how to choose differently." I stayed quiet. She continued. "You can forgive someone without rebuilding the same life." The words settled inside me. Simple, clear, powerful. Grace wasn't telling me what decision to make. She was reminding me that I actually had one. Work became busier over the next few days. New projects filled my calendar. Clients praised our latest design proposal. My manager stopped by my desk one afternoon. "Excellent work. Thank you. We're considering you for a leadership role." I smiled. "I'd like that." Walking back to my desk, I realized something. Months ago, my first thought would have been to call Claire. Now I simply enjoy the moment. Not because I wanted to hide it, because I no longer needed someone else's approval to make my happiness feel real. Megan called that weekend. "How are you holding up?" "Better." "I can't hear it." We talked about family for a while. Then she became quieter. "I met Claire yesterday." My grip tightened around the phone. "How is she?" "Different." "In what way?" "She visits her parents every Sunday now." I listened carefully. "She turned down another promotion." That surprised me. "Really?" Megan laughed softly. I was shocked too. "Why?" She told her boss she spent years chasing titles. A short pause. "Now she's trying to repair the people she ignored." I looked out my apartment window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. "Is she doing it because of me?" "I don't think so." Megan's answer came quickly. "I think she's doing it because she finally understands who she became." That conversation stayed with me. Real change never arrives through grand speeches. It appears in small choices repeated every day. Claire wasn't sending dramatic messages anymore. She wasn't asking mutual friends to convince me. She wasn't trying to make me jealous. She simply lived differently. That mattered. It didn't erase the past, but it mattered. Another month slipped by. Winter arrived quietly. The trees outside my apartment stood bare against the gray sky. The volunteer center prepared holiday meals for families in need. Everyone worked together wrapping gifts. Grace handed me a roll of tape. "You've gotten better at this." "I've had good teachers." She laughed. "I've only shown you where the scissors are." "That's enough." Oliver walked past carrying 3 boxes. I heard that. Grace pointed toward the kitchen. "Less talking." He saluted dramatically. "Yes, boss." The room filled with light laughter. It felt good. Not exciting. Not overwhelming. Just good. That evening, Grace and I stayed behind to finish cleaning. She stacked the last chairs while I swept the floor. When everything was done, she sat on the edge of the stage. "I've been wondering something." "Go ahead. Have you answered Claire's question?" I leaned the broom against the wall. "Not yet. You don't owe anyone a quick answer." "I know, but I owe myself an honest one." She nodded. "I think you're getting close." A few days later, my phone vibrated. One new message. "Claire, would you meet me one last time?" No expectations. No pressure. Just closure, if you're willing. I read it twice. Then a third time. There was no desperation in her words. No attempt to change my mind. Only respect. I stared at the screen for several minutes. Finally, I typed a reply. "One coffee. Saturday afternoon." Her answer came almost immediately. "Thank you." Saturday arrived with cold wind and bright sunlight. The cafe overlooked the river. Not fancy, just quiet. I arrived early. Old habits. Some things never completely disappear. I ordered 2 coffees before realizing I no longer knew what she preferred. The thought made me smile sadly. Time changes even the smallest details. Claire entered a few minutes later. She wore a simple sweater. No expensive business clothes. No laptop bag. No phone in her hand. She smiled politely. Thanks for coming. I thought we both deserved this. She sat across from me. Neither of us touched the coffee. You look well. So do you. She laughed softly. My brother would disagree. You've lost weight. I stopped living on office coffee. The small joke faded. I also stopped sleeping at work. I'm glad. She folded her hands on the table. I won't ask you to come back. I looked at her carefully. No. She shook her head. I wanted to. A sad smile appeared. But wanting something doesn't mean I deserve it. I admired the honesty. Months ago, she would have searched for the perfect argument. Now, she simply accepted the truth. My mother told me something. She looked toward the river. She said ambition isn't dangerous. I waited. But forgetting who waits for you at home is. She laughed quietly. I spent years proving strangers respected me. Another pause. I forgot to protect the person who loved me most. I wrapped both hands around my coffee. I've thought a lot about us. So have I. I realized something. She listened without interrupting. I don't regret loving you. Tears gathered in her eyes. I regret forgetting to love myself while I was loving you. She closed her eyes for a brief moment. I understand. I forgive you. The word surprised both of us. She looked up slowly. You do? Yes. She covered her mouth with one hand. Not to hide tears. To steady herself. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. A long silence followed. This one didn't feel painful. It felt complete. She reached in her bag, carefully removed the velvet ring box. I've carried this for months. I know. I don't want it anymore. She placed it between us. I can't keep holding on to a future that belongs to another version of my life. I rested my hand on the box. The familiar weight brought back 100 memories. The restaurant, the trash bin, the unread letter, the train station. Every moment lived inside that small piece of velvet. I opened it slowly. The ring still shone exactly as it had the day I bought it. Time had changed us. Not it. Claire watched quietly. I used to think that ring represented failure. Her voice stayed steady. Now I think it represents a lesson. I nodded. So do I. I closed the box again, held it for a moment, then looked across the table. The woman sitting in front of me wasn't the same person who had thrown it away. I wasn't the same man who had picked it out of the trash. We had both changed. The difference was that our paths no longer led to the same place. I'll always hope you're happy. She smiled through damp eyes. And I'll always hope you build amazing things. I already am. I know. She looked proud. Not possessive. Just proud. The waiter quietly refilled our cups. Neither of us noticed until he walked away. Life kept moving around us. Cars crossed the bridge outside. People laughed near the window. The world didn't stop for endings. It simply made room for new beginnings. I picked up the ring box one final time. My fingers rested on the lid. Then I reached across the table. Slowly, carefully, I placed the engagement ring in front of Claire. Without a word, I gently slid it back toward her. The ring stayed on the cafe table between us. Neither of us reached for it immediately. It no longer represented a promise. It represented a choice. Claire looked at the small velvet box for a long time. Finally, she wrapped both hands around it and gently pulled it toward herself. I understand. Her voice stayed calm. This isn't because you hate me. I shook my head. No, it's because you've finally learned how to love yourself. A quiet smile appeared on my face. I think I have. She lowered her eyes. I hoped that would happen. I just never imagined I'd be the reason you had to learn. The river outside moved steadily beneath the bridge. Water never argued with the past. It simply kept flowing. Claire slipped the ring box into her bag. I won't ask again. Thank you. She nodded slowly. You gave me more kindness than I deserved. I gave you honesty. She smiled through damp eyes. That's even harder. She stood first. For a brief second, it looked like she wanted to hug me. Instead, she simply placed one hand over her heart. I truly hope your future is beautiful. I hope you find peace too. I think I'm finally walking toward it. She turned and walked out of the cafe. She never looked back. This time, neither did I. Winter slowly gave way to spring. The cold mornings became warmer. Flowers returned to the park beside the volunteer center. Children once again filled the playground with laughter. Life continued doing what it always does. Moving, growing, beginning again. My work became more rewarding than I ever imagined. The leadership role officially became mine. Instead of chasing impossible deadlines every day, I helped younger designers build confidence in their own ideas. One afternoon, a new employee nervously placed his sketches on my desk. "I don't think they're good enough." I smiled because those words sounded painfully familiar. "Sit down." He pulled up a chair. I pointed toward one drawing. "Tell me why you created this." His eyes slowly brightened as he explained every detail. By the end of the conversation, he smiled. Not because I praised him, because someone finally listened. Walking home that evening, I realized something. The kindness I once begged to receive had become the kindness I naturally gave away. The volunteer center also became part of who I was. Not something I visited, something I belonged to. Grace and I spent nearly every Saturday there. Sometimes we organized books. Sometimes we painted classrooms. Sometimes we simply listened to people who needed someone willing to hear their story. Helping others never erased my own past. It reminded me that pain doesn't have to be the final chapter. One sunny afternoon, we carried donated plants into the community garden. Grace brushed dirt from her hands and smiled. "I think these flowers actually survived us." I had faith. "You had luck." I laughed. "Probably both." She stepped back to admire the small garden. "It looks peaceful." "It does." Her eyes found mine. "So do you." Months earlier, hearing those words would have felt impossible. Now they simply felt true. Not because every wound had disappeared, because they had finally become scars instead of open cuts. Our friendship changed naturally. No grand confession, no dramatic moment. One evening after volunteering, we stopped by the river with 2 cups of coffee. The same river where I had once ended the biggest chapter of my life. Grace rested against the railing. "Can I tell you something?" "You can tell me anything." She smiled. "I've started looking forward to Saturdays more than the rest of the week." "So have I." She laughed quietly. I had a feeling. The breeze carried a few loose strands of her hair across her face. She brushed them away. "I like being around you." "I like being around you too." Neither of us rushed beyond those words. There was no need. Some relationships grow stronger because nobody forces them to grow faster. Oliver noticed before either of us admitted anything. He walked into the volunteer kitchen one morning carrying a box of supplies. His grin appeared immediately. "I'm surrounded by suspiciously happy people." Grace rolled her eyes. "You imagine too much. I've known Ethan for years." He pointed toward me. "He smiles differently now." I laughed. "You're impossible." "I'll take that as confirmation." The room filled with easy laughter. There was no pressure, only warmth. That evening, Oliver and I shared dinner. Halfway through the meal, he leaned back in his chair. "Do you ever think about going back?" I understood exactly what he meant. "No, never. I think about the memories. And Claire, I hope she's doing well." He watched me carefully. "That's all." I smiled. "That's enough." Megan occasionally called with small updates. Never gossip. Never attempts to pull me backward. Only honest news. Claire visits Mom every weekend now. I'm glad. She takes actual vacations. Good. She even leaves her phone at home sometimes. That made me smile. I never thought I'd hear that. Megan laughed softly. Neither did any of us. One evening, Megan hesitated before ending the call. "There's one more thing." "What is it?" "Claire still keeps your letter." I remained quiet. "She carries a copy in her journal." A short pause followed. "Not because she thinks you'll come back." "Then why?" She told me it reminds her that love isn't something you postpone until life becomes convenient. After the call ended, I stood by my apartment window for a long time. The city lights stretched across the streets below. Years ago, hearing that would have filled me with sadness. Now it filled me with peace. She finally understood. Not in time to save us, but in time to become someone better. Sometimes that has to be enough. Several weeks later, I visited my apartment storage closet. A single cardboard box rested on the highest shelf. I carried it to the kitchen table. Dust covered the lid. Inside were small pieces of another life. Old movie tickets, photographs, a restaurant receipt, the wedding planning notebook, a tiny dried flower from our first anniversary, and one folded letter. The original, the one she had almost never read. I unfolded it carefully. The paper had grown softer with time. The words remained exactly the same. Every dream, every promise, every sacrifice. They belonged to the man I used to be. I smiled gently, not because the letter was foolish, because it reminded me how deeply I had been capable of loving. There was nothing wrong with that. The only mistake had been forgetting that I deserved the same care I offered someone else. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Gray stood outside holding a small basket. I made too much dinner. I laughed as I opened the door. That excuse gets weaker every week. I know, she smiled, but it keeps working. She noticed the open memory box on the table. Old memories? Very old. You okay? I looked at the photographs once more, then back at her. I am. She never asked to see inside. She never asked who every picture belonged to. She simply trusted my answer. That quiet respect meant everything. We ate dinner on the balcony while the sun disappeared beyond the buildings. The conversation wandered from work to books, from travel dreams to funny stories from the volunteer center. Nothing dramatic happened. Nothing needed to. Peace often sounds ordinary. After living through enough storms, ordinary becomes a gift. Later that night, after Grace went home, I returned to the memory box one final time. The folded letter rested on top. For years, I believed revenge would be seeing Claire regret losing me. Life taught me something much wiser. Watching another person suffer never heals the person who was hurt. Real victory arrives much more quietly. It comes the day you stop waiting for an apology before allowing yourself to be happy. Claire had apologized. She had changed. She had accepted the consequences of her choices without blaming anyone else. That didn't rewrite our ending. It simply allowed both of us to move forward honestly. The engagement ring she once threw away became the symbol of trust that could never be rebuilt. The letter she opened too late became the reminder that love ignored eventually becomes love lost. Neither object carried anger anymore, only truth. I carefully folded the letter one last time. Then I placed it inside the memory box beside the old photographs and closed the lid. The soft click echoed through the quiet apartment. That sound didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like completion. I slid the box onto the highest shelf, stepped back, and turned toward the window where tomorrow's sunrise would soon appear. Then I walked away, carrying nothing from the past except its lessons, toward a future where I would never have to wonder whether I was enough again.